Stay with Zimbabwe. Then political analyst ReboneTau has penned a piece drawing comparison between conditions under late President Robert Mugabe and incumbent Emmerson Mnangagwa. Tau joins us now for more on that. Rebone, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Your piece titled Zimbabwe at the Crossroads. Is Zimbabwe really at the crossroads? Chamisa says, we can't lose, we will not accept fake things. Victory is ours, we will win this election. Of course, as optimistic as he is, so is the incumbent, as optimistic and positive about a win. So, to answer that question, will 2023 elections break the ruling party's stronghold? Firstly, you have to ask, where do they get the legitimacy of their stronghold that they are holding on the people of Zimbabwe?
Good evening, Tabo, and good evening to the viewers at home. I mean, if historically you look at the previous elections in Zimbabwe, one thing you'll know that ZANU-PF is more of a rural party. That's where they've been getting their votes in the rural areas. And well, Triple C is a new party. That Chamisa led the MDC alliance, which in the past was led by the late Tsvangirai, and they've always been getting their vote in the urban area. And one thing is that with the rural vote, is there's issues of food parcels that have been given to the people in the rural areas, land also, so that's how they've always managed to get that rural vote, by having government programs in the rural areas, and it's easy to manipulate the people in the rural areas.
Yeah, I heard somebody saying, one of the doctors from Zimbabwe giving analysis, saying, well, the penetration of social media in the rural parts of Zimbabwe could turn that particular situation around. And they've seen, for example, some gatherings where Chamisa has been campaigning in rural areas being hugely supported.
Absolutely. I mean, Chamisa, he has realized that, well, they've got the urban vote, and now they need to penetrate the rural vote. And we've been seeing with his campaign trail, as he goes to the rural areas, that a lot of people have been supporting the newly formed party, the Triple C. And the other thing is that you must remember also, the youth vote is going to be a big headache for ZANU-PF in this election.
So what do you think would have, I suppose, I know you're one of those people I spoke to that believed that the ousting of Robert Mugabe was a coup. But what do you think would have tilted the scale against Mnangagwa this time around enough so that there could be some kind of big change?
Can you just elaborate on that so that I understand you clearly?
No, I'm saying when we look at whether or not there will be a break with the ruling party, what could be the factors at play that could be able to tilt the scale that way?
I mean, the ruling party, for example, you can see how things are under ED. For example, he's ruling by an iron fist, compared to Mugabe's era. The new laws, that have been passed in parliament, the PVO, the Patriotic Bill, and this is really making things difficult on the ground, and he's going to, by all costs, make sure that he retains power. As I said in the article, for example, the military presence that has been there since the ousting of Mugabe, he's been ruling through military rule, although he's not a military state, Zimbabwe.
So you're saying the military clampdown would probably be one of those issues that would be a big deciding factor, especially for the youth going to the polls?
Absolutely. Let's go to 2018, the outcomes of those elections. You remember that just after the outcomes, while they were waiting for a pronouncement of elections, the results, young people actually went out to demonstrate and so forth. And you had the military, clamping down, and that's why you've got the Kgalema Motlanthe report, which up to now, the government led by ZANU-PF has not implemented any of the resolutions that speaks to that Kgalema report, So definitely we'll see a repeat of what has happened in the past.
There is also talk, for example, of Mnangagwa seeking a third term, and there are others who are believing that his supporters, certainly those who would be in government, would soon push for an amendment to the constitution that would allow him to do that. Would that be, of course, a surprise to you, considering the history of Zimbabwe and the previous leader, who I think was there for close to 40 years?
Absolutely. I mean, that's not new talks. I can tell you, Thabo, if you building up to last year's conference of ZANU-PF, you had the ZANU-PF Youth League, for example, actually pushing for that, that there should be a constitutional amendment to allow ED to go for a third term. So this is something that has been discussed within ZANU-PF. But also it will be very interesting if Chiwenga will agree to that, because you must remember that Chiwenga, the vice president, plays a central role, in the removal of Mugabe. And we know that ED was in exile at the time when Mugabe was removed in South Africa, and he had to fly back to Zimbabwe after the removal. So will Chiwenga allow that within the military rank also, and also within ZANU-PF? There's the issue of, for an example, the G40 that still has an element, and some who are not satisfied within ZANU-PF, with how things are run by ED as the president of Zimbabwe. That's why for them it was in their best interest to make sure that Xavier Kosakere does not contest the elections, because he had a potential to split the ZANU-PF vote.
Yeah, and that, of course, leads me to my next question. Do you think there is party political democracy within ZANU-PF? Is that something that is existent there at that level, never mind at state level?
Well, I don't know if there is democracy. I mean, if there was democracy within ZANU-PF, for example, you'd not have some of those who were, linked to the G40 faction having to flee the country, before or during the ousting of Mugabe, and like Sylvia is still here. We know Jonathan Moyo is in Kenya, if I'm not wrong. So the reality of the matter is that in a party, if you have factions that are not allowed to operate, that means that then there is no democracy, because now in terms of leadership, it's decided and it ends there. There's no contestation like we see in the ANC, for an example, where we see when they go to conference, that there's this faction and that faction. There will be a healthy contestation. People's lives will not be at risk. People will not be forced to flee the country.
One thing we know for sure, that if we see, for example, a close race like what we saw in the previous election, around 2.4 million, 2.3 million, it will be highly contested, and maybe again the conversation around a power sharing deal will be put on the table. Would you advise that? Do you think it's something that would lead to some kind of reforms in Zimbabwe?
I mean, they're an opportunity, because you must remember that in 2008, when they had those elections, which led to a government of national unity in 2009, and there was the Global Party Agreement that was signed in 2008, and they went to 2013 elections, without, implementing the GPA and the reforms that in every election opposition party speaks for. They lost an opportunity. I don't know if lessons can be learned, but also we don't hear opposition parties actually speaking about the importance of implementing the Global Party Agreement, because everything that still that was agreed upon in the Global Party Agreement is still relevant even till today.
Rebone, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on and your intervention tonight. That is ReboneTau. Is there hope for a democratic change in Zimbabwe is the question. You can weigh in tonight, 072-110-5584. In Focus continues shortly.